It's another episode of Self-Development Tactics podcast. Today we are going through a video by the Tim Ferriss show around from solo adventuring to full-throated, is it throated? Yes, it is. Love and marriage, featuring Rolf Potts, who is also the person that I actually have talked about. I think it might have been yesterday as well, when it was about Memento Mori, which I don't know what it is, but it's around time, or it was around time. I think it is We Are Gonna Die, is it? Memento Mori, Latin for remember that you have, is an artistic or symbolic trope acting as a reminder of the inevitability of death, period. So not forgetting about the fact that we are just having a set amount of time on this planet and we should rather enjoy it. Maybe even make ourselves enjoy certain things. But yeah, let's see what Tim is saying, or what Rolf Potts, yes, Harry fucking Potter, Rolf Potts is saying.
The question that I want to ask was, as the solo dirtbag traveler, get up and go anytime, marriage now, what happened? I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but how did you personally arrive at a point where you're like, okay, I think this is the next...
By the way, there we go. From solo adventurer to full-throated love and marriage, Rolf Potts, the Tim Ferriss show from October 7th, 2022. So that they actually have the source also for the people on the podcast. And this is the full episode, just because I'm seeing it now. The Vagabond's Way, Tactics for Immersive Travel, Pilgrimages, whatever, and more. Rolf Potts, which was 10 days ago, so approximately... yes, September.
next step?
It's a good question, and I wish there could be some sort of replicable lesson here, that if you just do this during a pandemic, you'll meet your soulmate. But I just, through dumb luck and a dating app, I met my person. I met my soulmate during the pandemic. It's funny. She's from Kansas. I'm from Kansas. I've sort of been searching for my Kansas girl on the other side of the world. And she was on the other side of the world. She was living in Europe when the pandemic happened. She came back to be close to her family. I was living close to my family. We were both sort of bored on a dating app one day. And it's like, wait a second, really? You're out there? And it just went from zero to let's get married in no time flat. And so in a way, I met the right person and it was great. But I think just being open to that and realizing that was...
I wouldn't also say that this is by any chance like kind of the opposite, because I know where Tim is coming from regarding this question, regarding what he's talking about. But because of course, I mean, when I'm vagabonding around, when I'm just basically not having a home and traveling all the time, and then going from this very free state to having a marriage, so. Definitely certain things to do, to think about, to also a lot of legal shit. Yes, it's not necessarily the opposite. What I want to say is though that you can still do the shit that you want to do. You can still do travel and stuff. Maybe you're not alone, which is also pretty great. So I'm looking forward to what the answer is.
It's a thing. I think. As a dirtbag traveler, and I've always been a proud dirtbag traveler, there's some compromises you make in life where you think, I am sort of sacrificing traditional love for an interesting life and for freedom and for flexibility and for the ability to be anywhere at any time. And then you meet this person, then you meet your person. It's like all those song lyrics that you sort of rolled your eyes at when in your 20s suddenly make sense. It's like, yeah, sure. Give me an old 60s Motown song about love. And that's what I'm experiencing with this person. And so it's great. It's the ability to experience something. And it's not like I fell in love for the first time, but experience that full-throated, full-hearted, all-in love when I was pushing 50 was fun to see. And there's almost a travel parallel in that sense, in that you're always seeking newness. And I think I sort of had a scab over my heart in a certain sense, because travel was so rewarding and the freedom to travel was so rewarding that I didn't realize I could have it both. And then suddenly I met this person. It's like, oh. And I think when I proposed marriage, I used Waltman's line, I give you my hand, I give you my love more precious than money. Will you come travel with me? Shall we stick together as long as we live? If I didn't quote that directly, I paraphrased it, because it's like, yes, this is my person. Come travel with me and come stay here with me too. We have a good life here in Kansas as well. But it's interesting, and this probably doesn't happen to most people. I think a lot of people really get into the love mindset in that age that features romantic comedies, your 20s or whatever. But for some reason, I thought the price of an interesting life was not having traditional love relationship, and I was blown away to fall in love during the pandemic with my person. So
let's dig a bit further on that. You're an excellent writer, a man of words, a man of letters. How would you describe this experience? What was different? How were you different in responding to it? As you said, not your first time falling in love. And love can also be an umbrella term that covers a lot of different species of what we might call love. So what was different about you, about her, about the two of you? You've been exposed to a lot of things in a lot of places. So what was it?
I enjoyed being a bachelor back when I was one.
Which I also don't really understand. The whole freedom thing and not having to care about that much. But as you also said before, there's a lot of things that that you're going to miss out on, period. Whether it is very small things, whether it is very big things. But one has to be clear and keep in mind that there are definitely certain things that you will not have anymore, quote unquote, at least not as you've been used to it. But on the other hand, you're definitely also going to get certain things. You're also going to get like these new experiences, and probably even you're going to learn quite a lot about yourself as well. At least, this is quite what is happening to me quite. But I don't know. I think I do want to underline that I don't believe, and it obviously really depends on the person, really depends on the whole situation, also kids and whatnot, but one doesn't have to exclude the other. Like, just because I am in a relationship doesn't mean that I couldn't travel alone. It's all about talking, communication, and I don't know, figuring things out together. Like,
and I've told my wife sometimes we should have met 10 years earlier. Like, this 10 years would have been way more interesting if you would have been in it, right? And she's here, I'm not sure if we would have been ready. I'm not sure if I would have been ready for you and you for me. And so I think sometimes maybe I'm a person who just needed to grow a little bit, to be more open-hearted, to be ready to meet this person. And I'm suddenly this believer in fate. But I sort of needed to work through some things. I needed to travel some and just sort of get a sense to where I realized I needed that, that I wouldn't have lived a complete life. I needed my other half, I needed that full-throated, open-hearted love. And it sort of caught me by surprise. But now that I have it, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, what was I doing all those years before I met my wife? So does that answer your question? Or you?
I think it does. Yeah. I suppose I'm hearing you being more prepared on some level, even though perhaps it wasn't a conscious preparation for this, but having changed over time, become more open-hearted. You also, I would imagine, probably thought through what proposing and getting married would mean. I suppose if you have any other pieces of advice or suggestions for folks out there, maybe one who you're talking to, who is,
and it might also just say and mean that, first of all, it is okay to wait quite some time. It might be the case that, of course, depends on where you're living and, other circumstances and situations, but sometimes one is, I don't want to say obligated, but society quite says that you should be doing this and that and the other thing by this and that age, whether it is because other family members have done that or just the majority is doing that. But he said he was pushing 50, so I assume that he might be 50 right now or very close to it. And I don't know, I think it is really okay to wait up until this point to just, do X, Y, and Z. I don't think that this is wrong or bad or whatever. I really don't think so. Might also just be really smart to do so. I think on one hand, well, it could also be quite dumb or quite difficult then, because up until 50, I'd say that who you are is quite who you are, and maybe changing becomes more difficult, and adapting to certain things becomes more difficult. And then, of course, communication becomes even more important and more often. But I believe that for some people, it is just what they need and what is sensical and smart. And for some other people, it just, might indeed be like, I don't know, just in the 20s or in the 30s or whatever. But I believe it is not about rushing things. I'd say that this is very rarely smart.
I'd say getting to, if not having already passed the midpoint in life, who has not yet arrived there. Right? What would you say?
I think that needs to be worked through. I think too many people in all societies marry too soon because it's sort of expected. They think it will complete them somehow. I think working through ambivalence or through uncertainty is an important thing. I had a concussion. I wrecked a motorcycle in Asia in 2019, and it led me into some post-concussive depression. And I think sometimes that experience, actually, I'm not sure how hardwired for depression I am. I'm sort of this reflexive optimist, but it also felt seasonal depression sometimes. And so it was probably always there, but just sort of working through, sort of having my head knocked in a little bit and being, sort of working through dealing with aloneness and sadness and realizing that being completely an island away from other people is not necessarily a desirable thing. And I don't think that depression necessarily is going to compel someone to just marry the next person who walks in the door. I think I was very lucky to meet someone who's very well suited to be with me, and I with her. But I think working through those, just realizing it's something you need. Like I think I realized I needed that kind of love before I met my wife. And when I met my wife, it's like, oh, well, there you are, right? And so I worry, my nightmare is that I may have met her 10 years earlier and not recognized the way that she completed my way of being in the world. And so I would say don't be afraid of those negatives and the sadness and sort of trying, but be honest with yourself. I think sometimes maybe men have a problem with this more than women, is that self-sufficiency, trying to be completely self-contained and having freedom and not really having obligations to other people in life doesn't always yield happiness in a way that sort of yoking yourself to somebody else's life can. And so I can speak with expertise about travel, less so with love. I still feel like I was really blindsided by it. And again, very lucky to have experienced it in the full-throated way that I did. But I think just sort of working through it and realizing that complete independence and sort of being pinched off from other people in the world is not necessarily the best way to live.
And that is it with the video. I think, as well as I actually said before, there are always going to be upsides and downsides of whatever situation you're in and whatever lifestyle that you're having, and doesn't necessarily, like, maybe even the negatives aren't that negative, maybe the positives aren't that positive. I think, well, first of all, it is very individual and how you're living your life and how somebody else is living their life. But also, I would say that when one is able to live a happy life on themselves and are kind of content with who they are and are actually really happy with who they are, maybe, just maybe, it is also then easier to live together with someone, because it might just be about an addition for the other person and the person being addition to yourself. It's not about needing. Of course, at some point there is going to be a very strong connection, I'd say. But I don't know. Like, I do like the thought of I'm good myself, and I'm able to bring such a lot to the other person. I think this is a cool thought. I think this is a good and cool concept to maybe live by. To maybe, I don't know. I would say that this sounds good. This sounds really good. Kind of trying to maximize what it can bring to the table. Of course, without expecting quite anything by the other person. Of course, there's going to be certain things that are just important for you, just, individually important for you, and just some things that are important for or to me. But what can you offer, and how good can you make the other person's life, maybe? I don't know. I think that there are just many, many questions. Once again, it is about questions. Many questions that one could be asking oneself, and then to focus on, then to remember, and then to make sure to fulfill them, so that, I don't know, maybe you're just bettering the chances that things are gonna be good, working out well, or it's just good, or it's just making you happy, having like this overall goal, or this way of living, like creating meaning for yourself, basically, and a reasoning things for yourself. But yeah, I hope that I've been able to spotlight certain things, certain ideas, certain concepts maybe as well with the video. So thanks to Tim Ferriss and also Rolf for the inputs and the thoughts. And I'm hopefully going to see you the next time. So bye-bye. And now we have to wait till some time passes that the fucking outro is not being cut off.